One of the radical and completely shocking claims that the New Testament texts make is that Jesus is not only a great prophet, a great teacher, a great, potentially the king of the Jews, but that he is actually the very Son of God made flesh. And it's hard for us to wrap our minds again around how shocking and even offensive this would have been to first century Jewish ears, actually. The Greeks and Romans told stories of gods impregnating human women and sort of spawning demigods. And there was this sense in the Greek and Roman Empire that if you were a really super duper impressive human, like maybe, an emperor, for example, that you could kind of be promoted to god status, perhaps after you died. For Jews, all of this was the most rank blasphemy. Jews believed not only that there was one God who made the heavens and the earth, but that this God was utterly transcendent, that humans couldn't even look at God and live. And here is this claim made first, actually, by Mary, Jesus's mother. This claim that this utterly transcendent God had taken on human flesh in the person of Jesus would have and did blow the minds of first century Jews. Now, what was offensive to Greeks and Romans about this, as I say, was not the claim in and of itself that Jesus was divine, but actually the claim that somebody as seemingly unsuccessful as Jesus would be seen as divine. Someone who was crucified at the end of his life, a wandering Jewish rabbi who never made much of a name for himself. For him to be claimed to be God was absurd from a Greco-Roman perspective. And today, I think that there's also a sense in which people maybe are comfortable with the idea of Jesus as a prophet or a great teacher, but not as the literal Son of God made flesh. And I think that claim is very clear for us in the pages of the Gospels. People sometimes say that Jesus never claimed to be God. I think that's just to radically misread a host of stories in the Gospels where it's very evident, and it would have been very evident to first century Jews, that that's precisely what Jesus is claiming. One example is when Jesus is presented with a paralyzed man who was famously lowered down through the roof to him because there were so many people kind of crowding around to hear Jesus. This paralyzed man is lowered down through the roof, clearly with the expectation that Jesus would heal him. And Jesus looks at this man, he says, "Son, your sins are forgiven." Now, you can expect the man to feel kind of disappointed and his friends to be a little bit confused, but the Jewish leaders were absolutely appalled. What is this blasphemy? Only God has the right to forgive sins. Who does this guy think he is, saying that this person's sins are forgiven? And then Jesus says these wonderful words, but that you may know that the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sins. He says to the man, "Get up, take your mat and walk." So we see Jesus proving there that he does have authority to do the thing that only God can do. Or we see him calming a storm with the power of his words, just telling the wind and the waves to stop, to be quiet. And his disciples are absolutely terrified, and they say, "Who is this that even the wind and the waves obey him?" We see Jesus throughout the Gospels doing and saying what only God can do and say.